The natural essence of dreams. What is a dream? It is said that primitive man encountered 3 intellectual problems. These were the difference between animate and inanimate bodies, the natural essence of the forms seen in dreams, what the soul is, and where it goes after death. One of the thoughts that has occupied the mind of man since the beginning of his formation is these 3 issues, which have come down to us in a very strange way. The first of these pertains to the science of life, biology, the second to psychology, and the third to spiritual research. However, among these important issues, only the forms seen in dreams will be discussed here, and others will not be taken into consideration. For many centuries, the dream has constituted a subject of investigation and debate. However, it is only in the last few years that understanding what a dream is and what the things seen in a dream signify has become possible through serious and systematic research by experts in psychology. The term dream interpretation used here should not be confused with the dream book, found in the hands of fortune tellers or charlatans. It is impossible to create a single interpretation book based on alphabetical order because every dream is as distinct as the sentences that form it. Therefore, their interpretations must naturally be diverse and numerous. Thus, it is futile to ask what a single image seen in a dream signifies for everyone. Scientific dream interpretation does not work this way. A dream must first be examined and analyzed with extreme care. However, analyzing a dream in detail to reach a conclusion requires days and sometimes weeks. A dream can be symbolic, metaphorical, or representative. In such cases, its interpretation differs significantly from the literal events recorded in the dream. The dream is a psychological event that produces an interest for everyone. In dreams, we find ourselves as the sole protagonist of a special world, unrelated to anyone else, and including figures and forms that belong only to us. Yet, even in this state, we remain the center and hero of all events. Consequently, dreams constitute a field worthy of investigation and analysis from a psychological perspective regarding their causes and essence. The following lines were written for this purpose. The most secret essence of sleep. Aside from the daydream, the actual dream is an event that occurs within the mysterious state called sleep. Humans, animals, and even plants and vegetables sleep. Yet we do not truly know the causes and essence of sleep. Many theories have been proposed to explain the causes and essence of sleep. Some authorities believed that a substance in the brain produced sleep. However, it was later proven that this was completely contrary to the reality of sleep. While a person is asleep, there is less blood in the brain than when awake. When we begin to wake up, more blood flows back to the brain. The most plausible theory in this regard is as follows. Toxic substances, toxins, that accumulate in the body's organs and whose activities continue during the day the next morning. He does not remember anything he did. Sleepwalking, somnambulism, is divided into 2 types, artificial and natural. Artificial somnambulism is induced through hypnosis, suggestion, or other similar methods. Natural somnambulism, on the other hand, occurs spontaneously during sleep. The person gets up, moves, and acts in a completely natural state. The most common type of natural somnambulism is when the afflicted person gets out of bed and begins walking within the room, or even leaves the room dressed only in nightclothes or fully dressed. If the person is dressed, they may even go out into the street. They then return to bed and continue sleeping. In any case, they perform these actions with a startlingly habitual precision. The actions and movements a sleepwalker performs are, without doubt, a representation of the dream they are having at that moment. The people they see and speak to in the dream are treated as real people. While asleep, they pay no attention to the actual people surrounding them. If a sleepwalker speaks to real people while in that state, they do not perceive them as they truly are, but rather according to the identity and appearance those people have taken on within the dream. This happens because the person, even though their eyes are open, the sights and scenes they see are not real, but are scenes appearing within their dream. Often, the sleepwalker walks with closed eyes. Even when encountering obstacles, they pass them without colliding, guided by an unconscious sensation and an internal visual perception. If a sleepwalker wakes up during their dream, the desire to return to sleep appears immediately, or they attempt to restart the interrupted dream from the point they left off. Sleepwalkers who are intentionally awakened may say a word or a sentence, and after waking fully, they usually forget everything that happened. Waking a sleepwalker suddenly is, in most cases, dangerous. This can cause a severe shock to the heart and the entire nervous system, leading to grave consequences. There are cases where a sleepwalker has left their bed and traveled to very distant and dangerous places without harm. However, if someone tries to obstruct them or stop them from walking, the sleepwalker may be frightened to the point of life-threatening danger. Therefore, it is recommended not to touch sleepwalkers, but to observe them with care and attention until they return to bed on their own. Colors and the impact of light are secondary. In dreams, it is very rare to see the sun shining. Dreams are often lived in a world of gray, smoky colors, shadows, and darkness. Bright colors are, for the most part, non-existent. In most dreams, the colors seen are smoky or gray. Red, yellow, green, and blue are colors very rarely seen in dreams. Those who describe their dreams speak of many people, nighttime landscapes they have seen, and events occurring only at night. They describe these as being in a very dim state. Some even report moving within a thick, foggy layer. Another strangeness of the people seen in dreams is that they are two-dimensional. That is, they possess only width and height, but no depth. These individuals resemble figures cut out of cardboard by children. Some even say that the people they see in dreams are transparent. Others state that the people seen in dreams are non-transparent and solid, just like living humans. Now, which of these individuals that you see in dreams do you recognize? Are the dreams you see in color or shadowy like a ghost? Keep these points written here well in mind as you observe your dreams tonight and in the mornings. Remember them well. How do we see dreams? The fact that the human mind is occupied with dreams while asleep is one of the strangest natural phenomena. Humans see millions of dreams a year, yet very few of them are analyzed. What is the cause of not seeing dreams? There are many factors regarding this matter, but only a few of them will be touched upon here. To see a dream, first of all, the cause provided by the body's awakening or its sensations is well known. Dr. Mori, who has conducted the primary research on this subject, says, "If my body is cold, I see myself in a dream as old and dignified, or I find myself naked in the street. If my body is very hot and warm, in my dream, I see hot regions and even fire. Dr. Mori conducted some experiments on a friend while they were asleep. While the doctor was asleep, tickled his lips with a feather, pinched his ear, or dripped water on his body while he was asleep. He also let him smell various fragrant materials. All of these sensations performed on the sleeping friend's brain produced an impact, and as a result, the actions and movements seen in dreams were always reflections of these external influences. However, the mind cannot record and control these sensations perfectly. Instead, it represents them as events, works, or tragic scenes. This external stimulus is transformed into a narrative in the mind, and in this way, it serves the occurrence of the dream. This state is one of the most extraordinary manifestations of the dream. For example, if a door is slammed shut quickly in a dream, this might cause a pistol to explode. The dreaming mind takes this noise and creates an entire novel around it. The person sees himself in a tavern, encountering a man, and getting into a fight. The situation escalates to a duel, and they choose a location and decide on the conditions. They stand facing each other, and finally, as they fire their pistols at each other, the sound of the gunshot is actually the slamming of the door. The sound of the noise happened at that exact moment. This small event, a noise resulting from a minor incident, shows us how quickly dreams occur. Because the sequence from the noise to the end of the duel happened in a very short time, yet the sleeping person was woken up by it. This shows that in a tiny fraction of a second, the mind can form a narrative that would seemingly take a long duration. Therefore, although it is thought to last for hours, a dream actually occurs in a very short period of time, perhaps just a few seconds. In this state, the brain participates in an extraordinary speed of action and thought, which proves a reality that cannot be denied. Various types of dreams. How many types of dreams are there? From one point of view, it is impossible to count them, as there are as many types of dreams as there are people. However, from another perspective, the types of dreams are limited and specific. For instance, Dr. Freud accepts and follows a certain theory. Dreams seen are generally classified into 2 or 3 categories. For a quarter of a century, the dreams seen have been recorded in journals and analyzed. Among the famous psychologists, Frederick Van Eden, based on his own experiences, determined 9 types of dreams. However, many of these categories are recognized by the Freud school. The list arranged by Dr. Frederick is as follows: ordinary dreams. In terms of their essence, these are dreams devoid of importance. They are easily forgotten and are not considered significant dreams. These are the kinds of dreams everyone sees while asleep. Vivid dreams. These are unpleasant dreams seen while one is distressed. Humans generally do not remember these well. They are rarely seen. The events are viewed as faulty and incomplete in terms of life's reality. Symbolic or mocking dreams. In terms of essence, these are mixed with passions such as demons, fairies, love, and melancholy, and are seen very rarely. They mostly occur during rest without sleep. When a person wakes up, they leave a feeling of shame. Sensory dreams. This type of dream is unpleasant and very rare. However, some of these dreams are remembered clearly and serve as a clarifying warning. Graceful dreams. These consist of pleasant and graceful dreams, such as flying in the air, swimming in water, or floating. They are always seen between 5 and 8 in the morning. When the body is in a state of health, they are remembered perfectly. These dreams occur frequently and have a beneficial effect on the body. demonic and scary dreams. These are unpleasant dreams featuring demons, devils, and ghosts. Although the body is healthy, they are seen. However, they are not remembered perfectly. These dreams occur frequently and have an impact on the body. Inverted awakening. In these, dreams of demons and ghosts occur while the person is healthy and well, but upon waking, they appear very close to reality. Although they rarely occur, they are remembered in a very clear way. Initial sleep dreams. These are pleasant and graceful dreams seen during the initial stages of sleep, either while falling asleep or just after. These are dreams seen while the body is tired, occurring rarely and being remembered well. 9. Pathological or extraordinary dreams. These are unpleasant dreams seen while the body is ill. In terms of their essence, they have a distressing impact. Dreams are classified in this manner, yet they differ significantly from one another. For many years, observations have been made on these, and they are of great importance. Now, by looking at the list provided by European experts, we can see to what extent the dreams we see for ourselves correspond with these contents. How are dreams analyzed? In recent years, many investigations have been conducted regarding the psychological factors that cause dreams. Thus, the information required for this matter will be provided in this booklet. Psychological analysis, intellectual and emotional stimulants, and the contents of the subconscious begin to work to bring the dream to light. To analyze these dreams, one must investigate them in one way or another. Because a dream, as it develops and is recorded, allows us to penetrate its secret hidden factors. Based on experiences and research, many dreams occur in the form of a desire. This means they manifest a hidden wish. Regarding this, Freud goes even further and states that almost all dreams are essentially the manifestation of a desire. Eventually, this becomes a conscious state, emerging from the subconscious through a constant and direct manifestation. When we wake up in the morning, suppose we do not remember the dream we saw. However, this lack of memory is not complete. We do not remember the entire dream, but a manifest portion of it remains. This means that the part of the dream that is remembered is like the cream on top of milk. Yet what we actually wanted to see is the part that remains under that cream. This is precisely what can only be attained through psychological analysis. A person referred to as a medium is chosen. They sit in a quiet room in an armchair and are asked to close their eyes and repeat the things they see. The images and forms the medium sees may be disconnected and inappropriate to one another. Nevertheless, everything the medium says should be spoken freely and sincerely. As everything the medium says is recorded and controlled, the dream is revealed and its hidden factors are penetrated. In this way, the analysis of dreams reveals that the majority of them are composed of a desire or an aspiration. Many dreams, in their basic essence, possess a carnal nature. Why can we only remember a portion of our dreams? Because a part of the dream remains preserved and hidden in the subconscious, while only a small part undergoes a transformation into a conscious state. There is a sort of psychic censor or spiritual guardian that performs a duty similar to a sentry. It only permits the arrival of dreams that are very clear or harmless to the human consciousness. This surrounding environment that we carry within us is assumed to be a spiritual quasi-existence. However, the subconscious remains in a very primitive and wild state. and in dreams it expresses its thoughts and desires in a very free and sincere way. While a person is awake, this expression is not permitted by the aforementioned spiritual guardian or censor. In a dormant state, many thoughts, excitements, sensations, and ideas that have settled in the hidden mind come to the fore with the help of spiritual analysis. All these ideas are not unnatural things. If they were expressed in a true sense, it would lead to an increase in curiosity and training. However, some of these are unnatural. For example, the fear of a person falling into a certain thought process can be unnatural. A person who is a victim of such a thought can be compared to a mental cancer. Just as a physical cancer destroys and damages the organs of the body, a spiritual or mental cancer also ruins and destroys the mind. Just as a physical cancer is removed through a surgical operation, a mental cancer requires the removal of harmful ideas through spiritual analysis. In this regard, spiritual analysis serves as a surgical procedure for the soul, designed to cleanse and sweep away the fears and thoughts that have taken hold of the victim. 8 common types of dreams for everyone. Every person can estimate their own dreams by comparing them to one of the following classified types. These 8 types of dreams are falling from a height, flying in the air, seeing one's body as naked in a dream, seeing a monster, or being harmed by an animal. A dream where a person is running away but cannot escape, being forced into a dangerous place, seeing a cold object or an object that inspires desire, going on a journey and losing one's luggage or other belongings, or being unprepared. These dreams occur so frequently and in such a high number that they must have a cause. For many of them, there is a specific law that triggers them. Humans see these identical dreams because the same effective intellectual and physical conditions and circumstances are necessarily present. What is this law? It is the law of identical causes producing identical effects. This law, which governs our daily lives, also rules our dreams with the same intensity and power. Therefore, dreams are not random, they are governed by law. But what are the causes that bring the dream into existence? This is because for every occurrence, there are various and diverse reasons. In this booklet, their definitions and explanations are quite lengthy. For example, seeing one's body as naked in a dream often arises from the necessity of seeing the body exposed, or from not being covered by a blanket or duvet, leading to a sensation of cold that the body transforms into a dream. Dreams of falling from a height or flying in the air have a very close relationship to each other. Sometimes these dreams are of the same type. The dream of falling from a height is an unpleasant and undesirable one. In contrast, the dream of flying in the air is relatively pleasant and desirable. Both are reflections and manifestations of our daily lives within sleep. The reason for the dream of falling from a height is defined as follows. While in bed, if a person lies in a certain position for a long time, the blood flow to one side of the body may be partially interrupted, producing a numbness. This numbness creates a sensation of having nothing underneath the side of the body. Because you feel nothing supporting your side, you experience a state of being in a void. Quite naturally, when there is nothing beneath you, you will fall. That is the cause of the falling dream. Recently, psychological investigations regarding these dreams have concluded that the falling dream often stems from an internal anxiety or struggle. This feeling in a dream is understood only as falling. For example, a person who fears committing a forbidden act, something religiously or morally prohibited, will often see a dream of falling from a height. Nightmares. While nightmares are relatively common during childhood and puberty, they occur much more rarely in adults. A nightmare is a terrifying event. There are thousands of reasons that can cause a nightmare to take hold of someone. For instance, I know very well a person who was oppressed by nightmares for years. Until the age of 9, almost every night in his dreams, he saw himself at the seaside with his brother and sister. While they were playing on the sand, suddenly a giant snake would emerge from the sea and chase them. This witch or giant would catch them one by one and lift them into the air, only to drop them back into the sea. The child would wake up immediately in a state of intense excitement and distress. Nightmares occur in various types and intensities. The most common ones involve falling from a high place, or being pursued by a terrifying person, or even being tortured or buried alive. Sometimes they involve drowning in water or being eaten by a wild animal or a cannibal. In other words, a person who is afraid of something while awake will see that fear manifest in the form of a nightmare. According to an old theory, nightmares were thought to be caused by eating too much or eating late at night, which leads to slow digestion, or by sleeping on one's back. These were considered the primary triggers for nightmares. Regarding the general cause of nightmares, the point is this: a full stomach or an accumulation of gas in the intestines exerts pressure on the blood vessels. This pressure prevents the brain and other organs from receiving a free flow of blood. This contraction and lack of circulation in the heart and lungs are what produce the nightmare. Undoubtedly, physical health plays a major role in the absence or presence of nightmares. Old beliefs and theories regarding the soul have mostly faded away. According to modern psychological theories, dreams are the result of mental events and are not merely physical occurrences. Most nightmares are a reflection of the fears and anxieties we encounter while awake. In the realm of mental struggle, nightmares occur quite frequently. A nightmare provides the cause. For example, a desire to perform a specific action, but the realization that it should not be done can manifest as a nightmare. Why do nightmares occur? We know that nightmares start with a struggle within our thoughts, and we become a victim to this mental conflict. It is impossible to completely erase this from the mind. These thoughts remain preserved in the subconscious. This is exactly what produces the nightmare. Why does a nightmare not occur all the time? This is a valid question, because if internal struggles were to dominate continuously, sleep's tranquility would be disrupted, and we would enter a cycle of constant nightmares and terrors. However, the spiritual guardian or censor mentioned before acts as a preventative force. It stops the states arising from internal conflict from becoming nightmares, except in rare cases. Preventing a nightmare from taking hold is, in most cases, a difficult problem. If the physical cause producing the nightmare were simple and could be corrected or adjusted, it would be easy. Meaning, if it were just about eating late or sleeping on one's back, one could simply change these habits to prevent the nightmare's appearance. However, the reality is not so simple. For many individuals, no matter what physical position they sleep in, they cannot escape the distress of the nightmare. In these recorded observations, alongside the occurrence of nightmares, there is no doubt a mental factor. In this regard, it is necessary to be in a state of struggle, that is, an internal anxiety. To discover the essence of these thoughts, one must use the help of psychological analysis. Only through such analysis can the hidden causes and internal struggles be discovered. For this purpose, a very detailed investigation and analysis of the subconscious must be conducted. For a mind that does not sleep, a healthy and logical mind occupied with thoughts, a nightmare rarely takes hold. Insanity and dreams. There is a very close resemblance between insanity and dreams. Is this because insanity is a waking dream? Because in our time, insanity has so many symptoms and manifestations. The madman wanders, utters various delusions, and is in a state far removed from reality. In our era, we do not speak of the possessed, but of the insane. Because for every person, at certain times, a bit of madness can be witnessed. Is the human condition not naturally like this? A natural state can deviate. A temporary form of insanity can occur. However, in most cases, consciousness and perception eventually prevail, and the person returns to a natural state. In dreams, we do such strange and unusual things that if we were to do them while awake, they would be met with astonishment. Between insanity and dreams, there is a striking difference. That is to say, the person seeing the dream performs all these strange and incoherent actions and movements only in their imagination, while the madman performs them while awake. In our dreams, we are exposed to such exciting transformations and changes that if all of these were a natural way of life for us, we would be very far from a normal state. The exact same conditions are present in the insane. In a dream, even the most severe transformations can appear as subtle changes, giving rise to many events and occurrences. To a person whose thoughts and reflections are in a state of incoherence, whose mind is gripped by a seemingly apparent lack of connection between forms and imaginations, this entire wretched situation is accepted as normal. Just as the diseased brain of the madman continues to be filled with a sequence of events and movements that appear incoherent and inappropriate. In both states, these incoherencies require correction, observation, and meditation. It is said that dreams, whether joyful or sad, represent the state of excitement in which a person's mind finds itself. Nightmares and other distressing dreams seen by the distressed, the mad, and those undergoing transformations are reflections of the terrifying and mysterious secrets of their internal state. These dreams are called hallucinations. Hallucinations and imaginations, meaning the interpretations and expressions of sensory impressions, are seen in dreams just as they are seen by the mad, but in a completely different way. In truth, there is a general state between the two. In reality, a dream is nothing more than a vast imagination from beginning to end. The pride and arrogance of the mad are also found in dreams. The hero of the events and occurrences in the dream finds himself in a very beautiful state of explanation. In a dream, one stands as a wanderer, a stray, or an astonished person for no reason at all. If the things seen in a dream were accepted as truth, it would be impossible to maintain a logical state more incoherent than this. Like the madman who does not see the inappropriateness of his own delusions and imaginations, the dreamer accepts this entire miserable situation. However, when health and sanity are restored, or upon waking from sleep, How the dream seen by the person vanishes from the mind is a process of the diseased and harmful forms and conditions being swept away. Insanity and sleep are both temporary. Both are interruptions of the transformations of life and the natural flow of thought. In both states, the person's habitual and natural activities are disrupted. Finally, the person returns from that state of thought and even some of those movements to a completely different condition. The mind that thinks and moves is replaced by another brain. This other brain is completely free from causing harm. Even to the person seeing the dream, it shows the nature and reality of things with more clarity than when awake. Just as a drunkard reveals his secrets, a dream reveals the true personality, desires, and aspirations of the person, things that, while awake, are prevented from being expressed by social norms and habits. In the following sections, we will see that there is a very strange resemblance between certain forms of insanity and dreams. However, in this regard, we recommend not considering these as complete delusions. Because the human brain is such a delicate mechanism that its natural benefits and activities are preserved only through certain means. If physical and mental health are solid and stable, the brain remains occupied with useful thoughts. Otherwise, it remains in an abnormal or diseased state, losing its balance and becoming susceptible to many misuses. How to remember dreams. Many people find great benefit and use in remembering the dreams they have seen. However, remembering them can be difficult to a certain degree. Dreams are easily erased from the memory. Even a very vivid and realistic dream, while we are awake, can be subject to a strong influence that prevents it from being remembered. This is the work of the spiritual guardian or censor mentioned earlier. To help a person remember the dreams they have seen, there are some simple rules and techniques that we will mention here. The first thing to be done in this regard is, upon waking up, do not open your eyes immediately. Instead, try to keep the lines and scenes of the dream in your mind. Focus your memory on these. In this way, you should act with great care and attention, as if looking into a still pool of water to see its contents. By doing this, the details of the dream will gradually begin to attach themselves to your memory. A dream is like a cinema film unfolding before your eyes. By unfolding its stages slowly, from the end back to the beginning, it remains in a calm state of thought. To fully remember long dreams, following this recommendation allows you to move backwards from the end. In this manner, you can think from the beginning to the end, recalling the general scenes, individual persons, and dialogues of the dream completely. Once a dream is remembered, it should be immediately recorded and captured. By doing this, the stages of the dream settle into the memory. Just as you record and capture your daily life, if you record and capture the dreams you see, you will feel as if you are living two separate lives. You will understand how different these lives are from one another. With all this, for those who are excitable, imaginative, or perhaps those with sensitive nerves, keeping a dream journal may not be suitable, because in such cases, these activities can lead the subconscious to a very active field, which can cause further discomfort. Famous historical dreams. If we leaf through the pages of history, we see that dreams have played a major role. For example, Pharaoh discovered what the fate of the Israelites would be by interpreting a famous dream he had seen. The famous poet Dante saw his father in a dream one night, who told him where the lost 13 cantos of his work, titled The Divine Comedy, were, and his father told his son. The discoverer of blood circulation, William Harvey, said that he had seen a dream that saved his life. While traveling towards Europe, he was prevented from boarding a ship due to a dream he had, and in reality, that ship sank after being caught in a violent storm during the voyage. Francis Bacon reported that he learned about his father's death through a dream he saw, and in fact, his father died a few days later. James IV, the King of Scotland, after the Lent prayer in the church, fell into a sleep, and in the dream he saw, he received clear warnings about the state of war he was in against England. The king did not heed these warnings and went to war. Then, in another dream, he was warned again at Jedburgh. The king ignored this warning as well, and was eventually killed in the Battle of Flodden Field. The King of England, Charles I, also saw Lord Strafford in a dream twice, on the night before the Battle of Naseby. Lord Strafford, who had been prepared and dispatched by Parliament, advised the king twice not to go to war. The king did not follow the Lord's advice, and they suffered a final defeat. It is narrated that Queen Elizabeth was also informed in a dream about the path she would follow. Catherine de' Medici wrote in her memoirs that she saw the Battle of Jarnac exactly as it happened in a dream. Emperor Trajan saved his life from a severe earthquake as a result of a warning he received in a dream. These are dreams recorded and documented by history. However, in our time, there are many masters of science, art, men of knowledge, politicians, thinkers, and religious scholars who have seen many such dreams that gave definite and specific results. However, they have been completely forgotten because they were not recorded and documented due to mere neglect and carelessness. With what and how do you see in a dream? What do you think your dream eye is? In other words, with what and how do you see in a dream? Have you ever thought about this matter? There is no doubt that in a dream, you do not see with your eyes, because while you are asleep, your eyelids are closed and your eyeballs are turned upward. Your body is in an inactive state, spread out on the pillow. Despite all this, you see many events and people very clearly and vividly, and sometimes you speak with them. If you do not see these with your body's eyes, with what do you see them? Here is a very deep matter for you to think about. Many dreams, as mentioned before, are specific matters related to insight according to their nature. In our dreams, rather than smelling, tasting, or touching, the act of seeing occurs more frequently. This state in a dream, while awake, the sense of sight acts in a role much more active and prominent than our other senses. Most of our dreams are of a visual nature. That is, past events and incidents belong to days we have already left behind. When we think about it, all these events pass before our mind's eye, like a cinematic film strip in a fluid state. Therefore, in the memory, internal forms come into existence. This sense develops, and just like a mirror, reflects many scenes to itself. In this state, it becomes so vivid that forms existing in the memory are perceived as the true nature and essence of real objects. At that moment, what we call delusion and imagination comes into being. What we call crystalline imagination is an event of this nature, because the forms we see within these vapors are not actually present within the crystal in reality, but are only in the memory. These forms are external reflections. However, they become so vivid that those who see them believe they appear clearly within the vapors of the crystal. Is the power of imagination an extraordinary sense in one's opinion? Just as past events are portrayed in the memory, the events of the future are accepted as being portrayed only by this sense in the mind. While we are awake, it performs its activity in various scenes and stages, its nature, even imagining non-existent people and the various roles they play. This situation is exactly like the one in the world of imagination we dive into during the day, just as it is in the dreams seen at night. If we perceive these things, and if they are things that occur in full accordance with the facts at that time, can we reject them by saying they are mere imaginations? However, there is no need for such detailed clarification regarding the things we perceive. If a telepathic or metaphysical factor or medium is required for the execution of this activity, we must accept its existence. This issue we are facing, from whichever side it is examined, constitutes a beneficial subject. How do we see in a dream? The issue of forms in the memory. How are these forms portrayed? This is a question. A satisfying answer has not yet been given to this question. However, to hope to understand the manifestations of sight that occur in a dream more clearly has become a lost cause. Telepathic dreams. Telepathy, that is, the quality of transmitting thought. While one is awake, it occurs with a power and influence even greater than has been proven by experts of spiritual science. Telepathic dreams can occur and be known through the influence of one person's thought on another at a long distance. In such a dream, a person can perceive the thoughts of someone who is absent just as clearly as we understand them, or even realize if they are in danger. The phenomenon we refer to as telepathy is the most vivid and noteworthy aspect of dreams. A few years ago, I was a guest at a very close friend's house. My friend's sister was not yet married at that time and lived in the countryside. That night, the owner of the house, Madame G, suddenly became ill with a serious and dangerous condition. News was sent to the family doctor, but the doctor was not in town, so a foreign doctor was summoned. While Madame G was under the observation of this doctor at midnight, the family doctor arrived. The next morning, the homeowner's sister, who was in the countryside, sent a telegram. In the telegram she asked, "Has something happened? Answer quickly." I gave the necessary reply to the doctor, and that evening another letter arrived from the sister in the countryside, addressed to me. I received this letter, which had been mailed at the same time the telegram was sent. In her letter, the lady wrote the following about that very strange event. I saw a dream like this. My sister was very ill and lying on her side. Beside her, in the room, 2 doctors were conducting a consultation. One of the doctors was from our family, and the other was someone I did not recognize. He was a tall, dark-complexioned foreign doctor. Our doctor introduced him to me as Dr. Rice. This event that occurred in the room immediately convinced me of the reality of the situation. So I thought of writing this letter to you along with the telegram. This lady's dream was a vivid manifestation of the event that unfolded in that room that night. The lady correctly identified the names, descriptions, and people. However, the name of the foreign doctor was not Rice, but Reed. The lady in the countryside had no reason or pretext to fall into such worry about her sister, because the last time she heard from her, her sister was in complete health and well-being in the city. The sick lady in the city had started thinking about her sister in the countryside. I know this for certain. The sick lady, unconsciously, must have projected the current state of her mind onto her sister in the countryside in a photographic manner, which then unfolded in such a strange way. Could it not be so? The accuracy of this dream was documented at that time by Dr. Richard Hodgson, the General Secretary of the American Society for Psychical Research. These telepathic dreams, collected and analyzed by that society, have been published as a series. While the conscious mind is in a state free from the outside world, is it not possible for the soul to receive such telepathic news? This event is such a great proof of this, and there are hundreds of other similar occurrences. Prophetic dreams, telepathic impressions. Existing in the minds of people far away can be carried out through the influence on the mind of a person who is asleep, just like prophetic dreams, which can also reveal the future. Below, we include examples of the dreams we mentioned. These are a few examples of such dreams. The first of these was seen by Camille Flammarion, one of the French astronomers. Every year, I used to spend my vacation time in the countryside, in the same villa. A room was allocated to me, a room next to another. In a corner of that room, there was a wardrobe. I saw in a dream a flame spreading from behind that wardrobe. I woke up from the dream. 6 months later, I went to that village again to spend my vacation. They allocated the same small room to me. They had not seen or changed anything here. The wardrobe was still standing in the same corner I saw in the dream. As soon as I saw the wardrobe, the fire came to my mind immediately. I told the owner of the house about the dream. He said that 10 years ago, a fire had indeed broken out in that vicinity, and because there was a fear that it would jump there, the place was evacuated. The fear gradually faded, and while the arrival of the 4th week continued, suddenly the danger bells began to ring. A terrible fire broke out in a summer house not very far from where I was sitting, and it spread, turning the wardrobe and the pile of laundry in the corner of the room where I was sitting into a heap of ash. The following dream was seen by Prince Emmanuel of Wiesbaden. A friend I loved very much was dangerously ill. I fell asleep while I was very saddened and distressed by his illness. I found myself in a villa I had never known or seen before, in a room furnished with red satin. A room was allocated to me. It was an 8-cornered room. In one corner of the room, there was a bed, and in that bed was the sick. My friend was sleeping in a certain state. In a corner of the room, there was a light reflecting from a lamp hanging from the ceiling, which looked like a mihrab. The light spread with a pale and dim glow, illuminating a face with long black hair, a pale yet smiling countenance. At the head of the bed, there was a painting. This image was so vividly engraved in my memory that I remembered it clearly after waking up. This painting depicted the head of an angel made of marble with a crown of thorns placed upon it. It was Jesus. Around the crown, some lines of poetry were written. I even read that poem. 2 years later, during a trip to the interior of Hungary, we stayed as guests in a castle. When I entered the room assigned to me, I began to tremble with astonishment. This room was the octagonal room with red satin upholstery that I had seen in my dream 2 years ago. The bed was in the same corner, and at the head of the bed was the marble painting of Jesus, with the crown of thorns and the lines of poetry written around it. This painting of Jesus was not a copy or a reproduction. It was the original itself. Aside from seeing it in a dream, it was impossible for me to have seen it anywhere else. To see an octagonal room with all these details. Can we consider the emergence of these things, seen in a dream, down to the smallest detail, as mere coincidence? This would be a very misplaced and inconsistent thing to claim. How is the future revealed? The answer to this question will be given in another treatise. Dreams induced through suggestion. Dreams can sometimes be so vivid and visionary that they may be caused by an obsession, or a person may be influenced by something they see during the day or another cause, making it impossible to misunderstand the reason. Leaving aside the observation of how dreams occur, let us mention how a dream can be brought about by influence in a person who is asleep. These experiments were conducted in the city of Padua in Italy by Professor Armacora and have been successfully repeated by others. Professor Armacora's experiments are detailed in the first volume of the General Reports published every year by the American Society for Psychical Research. Professor Armacora conducted his experiments on automatic writing with a gifted lady named Mademoiselle Mariana Zini. Mademoiselle had a 4-year-old niece named Angelica who lived with her. This young child played an active and important role in the experiments. The professor conducted multiple experiments, sometimes only with Mademoiselle Mariana, and sometimes with the assistance of little Angelica. The purpose of these experiments was to determine whether specific images or scenes could be impressed upon the subconscious mind of the sleeping child, and whether she could recall seeing these things in her dream the next morning. This experiment was carried out using the method of telepathy, because telepathy is much more effective while one is asleep than while awake. In one of the experiments, while Mademoiselle Mariana was in a state of somnambulism, sleepwalking, or deep trance, the professor put her into a state of fainting. In this state, he suggested to the little child Angelica that she would see the city of Venice, its gondolas, and other sights in her dream. The next morning, Angelica narrated the scenes she saw, which were completely identical to the ones suggested. The next morning, Angelica narrated her dream. Along with her mother, Mademoiselle Mariana, she recounted seeing Venice and its ladies bringing a cake. While they were cutting the cake, a small bird resembling a pigeon emerged from the center of the cake and began to fly. She even added that she saw this flying object. According to the definition, this was nothing other than the bird suggested through telepathy. These experiments prove in an undeniable way that it is possible to influence the mind of a sleeping person through telepathy and to cause specific dreams or even mysterious blue dolls to accompany them. This blue doll, seen by Mademoiselle Mariana while she was in a faint, was named Elvira. This blue doll was a projection from Mariana's mind to Angelica's mind, and it accompanied her in the dreams she saw. This is very strange. In another experiment, Mademoiselle Mariana, along with her mother, entered Angelica's dream. In Angelica's dream, her mother and Mariana were seen cutting a cake, and Angelica was frightened by several flying birds that emerged from the cake. The next morning, in Angelica's dream narration, along with Mademoiselle Mariana and her mother, she told the same story of cutting the cake with the ladies, and she described exactly how birds emerged from the cake and flew out. This flying object was clearly nothing else but what was suggested through telepathy. These experiments prove in a manner that cannot be rejected or denied that it is possible to influence and assist the mind of a person who is asleep through telepathy, or to bring about a dream through such an influence. Do we have a body in a dream? In a dream, the body we carry exists at a level of outward appearance. It becomes a material and physical existence within the dream. In the dream, our body changes and transforms in terms of density, volume, and general conditions. Sometimes it appears in a state that is as thin and fluid as steam or vapor, or it acquires a density that can be felt by the sense of touch. This existence is a body that is perceived as real, at least in appearance. Likewise, this body can transform into the form of your childhood, or you can imagine yourself in all the stages of your life as you walk to school. You see yourself in the dream as a child walking to school, and you believe it to be a reality. In the face of these wonders, what meaning should we give to these strange situations through the transport and medium within our sleep? Is the dream composed of a real body or a semi-body? Or is it a form drawn in the mind? Is it your own image, or is it a dream of an original nature that you see? In many cases, any object we see is undeniably perceived as clearly as we see it ourselves. However, along with this, it is difficult to accept this quality, which is essentially very simple, as being identical to its reality. For instance, suppose we have traveled back to our childhood. When we were at school, we see ourselves in the dream in the exact form of our childhood from that time. Who are those who look at us from around? That one, that person walking there, what form, whose image is it? This situation can be easily explained with an extraordinary theory. Some people see themselves in a dream exactly as they are, while others feel a sense but do not resemble what they see. In fact, there is no difference at all. A person sees themselves in a dream, and then another strange matter arises before them. That is also a reality. What does it resemble? We do not see others as we see ourselves in reality. Let us look at it as if we were standing at a certain angle of two mirrors placed opposite each other, creating an infinite line of reflection. Let us look at the distance of the mirror. In an ordinary mirror, your image is reflected in a position where, for example, your right side appears on the left and your left side appears on the right. How is it that we see a vivid and real image of ourselves in a dream as if we were awake? In some dreams, there are signs that lead us to accept that we live in a body. This is not just an idea, it consists of what was mentioned above. The hidden theory of the occurrence of dreams has been explained under that heading. A beautiful example regarding the subject mentioned below constitutes a model. On the night of January 19th, in my dream, I was in a garden. I had fallen asleep in a place that happened to coincide with the window of my study room, lying on a gray sheepskin. I was watching the dog's movements with great attention. At the same time, I was saying with certainty that I was seeing a dream. I was lying on my back in bed. Without making any sound, I left the bed and went out to the garden. And while I was lying face down on the sheepskin in the garden, a feeling occurred that woke me up. How did I find myself lying on my back in bed while I was in a state that had turned into a prone position? In reality, I was successful in my resolve to observe it. The revolution that took place, which also happened many times afterward, was a situation that caused remarkable wonder and was extraordinary. In this case, it was like the separation of one body from another. or the duality of the body. While I was lying face down, I remembered the dream I was seeing, and while I was saying that my apparent life was following it, I also remembered that I was lying on my back in bed. In this way, I repeated this experiment many times, and finally, through these experiments, it was established with complete certainty that the existence seen in a dream is a fact that cannot be rejected or denied. Could these experiments suggest the creation of another being or existence that is seen within a dream? If this is indeed the case, then this existence, once it has transitioned from all the religious beliefs suggested in its state, constitutes a thought that would not occur to our minds while we are in a calm state? Is life composed of a dream? The question, is life composed of a dream, is one that many have repeated. One day, will we wake up in a world of reality and realize that what we have seen was only a dream? At that moment, will we understand that the things we believed to be real were actually things seen in the mind, composed of illusions? The Indians believe that life consists of a dream and that we only see it within a dream, and only when we wake up from the sleep of negligence will we understand the truth of our situation. Plato also follows a similar belief. Plato says that people are in a state directed toward a fixed point, inside a cave. Their heads are bound by a chain. In front of them, the shadows of real people passing by are seen. And those who are bound by the chain, their faces are directed toward the shadows. They see the shadows and believe these shadows of people to be real humans. Those who hear this theory from Plato might say, as people of sound mind, look, I am pinching myself and I feel the pain of it. To say I am actually in a dream is probably impossible. However, if one observes the dream eye and its special power, it is understood that the state called a dream, even while in sleep, allows one to prove their own existence in that dream just as they do in real life. You might say, look, I am pinching myself here too, while in the dream, and you would indeed feel the pinch in that reality. With this method, you succeed in your experiment. It is as if a visible body is applied to us. Every experiment you perform in a dream while in this state, that is, the waking state, is an attempt to distinguish between seeing in a dream and being awake. We are successful in coming to a conclusion that separates the two. Now that we have reached this conclusion, does the question not arise? Is our life composed of anything other than a dream? In reality, the idea that a person's life consists of a dream is a natural thought. It is quite common. But to prove the falsity of this thought is an obligation, even though it is difficult, and one immediately understands the great complications it presents, because the fact that life is a reality is supported by every thought and every experience. A person seeing a dream moves into the valley of existence within that dream. Therefore, the question, is life composed of a dream, is a subject for deep, profound thought, rather than simple administrative or everyday speech, and it is an area for broad research and utilization. Conclusion. We have mentioned important issues and events related to dreams in the previous pages. In short, we have summarized them. The issues belonging to this subject could each fill a vast and detailed book. To fit them into such a small treatise and understand them completely is impossible. Nevertheless, within this collection published under the title Psychological Analyses, We have mentioned dream issues in a more illustrative and clear manner. Because this has already been mentioned, anyone curious about this matter must think in a calm state. In order to remember a long dream completely, act in accordance with this recommendation. If possible, think from the beginning to the end without skipping a single point. In this way, all the scenes, characters, and dialogues of the dream will be remembered completely. The less you are accustomed to remembering dreams, the more the dream will pass from your memory in a short time. At first, you may not remember the dream at all for a few mornings, but if you follow this method and use your memory in this regard, and if you remain under the influence of the habit, you will easily succeed in recalling the dreams you see. Immediately record and document the dream you remember. By doing so, all stages of the dream will be settled in the memory. Just as you record and document your daily life, if you regularly record the dreams you see, you will understand how different these two lives you are living are from each other. With that being said, keeping a diary belonging to dreams is not suitable for overly emotional, delusional, or nervous people, because in this case, those under the influence of the subconscious are led into a very active field of thought, which causes them to become even more restless